This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some big things to share with you in this video. We'll talk about the California $1,100 stimulus checks, the Florida $5,000 checks from Governor DeSantis. We'll also talk about the general four stimulus check updates. When it comes to the big reconciliation bill, looks like Joe Manchin sees a deal happening this week. Also, Joe Manchin wants to get rid of that IRS probe from the deal, and there's some shadiness with Joe Manchin, his ties to coal companies, and how this relates to the overall bill. I'll give you all those updates as well as some other important updates along the way. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced update, hit the like button down below. So let's get right into it. Stimulus news: latest round of Golden State payments worth up to $1,100 set to hit on October 31st. So if you live in California and you're expecting those $600 stimulus checks plus an extra $500 if you have any dependents, looks like October 31st is when the bulk of those direct deposits are going to start hitting bank accounts. Also, roughly 75% of eviction aid has not reached renters, which is really, really sad. So we had billions, I think it was $46 billion for federal rental aid to prevent evictions, which are supposed to go to renters and landlords. Roughly $10 billion of that has been used, which means that 75% of it has not been used, just sitting in accounts. Now, we've spoken about this months ago. They said that they were going to rush to try to get this out, still have not given it out. The Treasury said that funds from Emergency Rental Assistance, the ERA program, reached more than 510,000 households last month and more than 2 million since the initiative began this year. Department had distributed the entirety of the $46 billion to eligible states and local entities in May to help struggling renters avoid eviction upon expiration of federal and state moratoria. So the funds were distributed to all of the state and local governments, but yet it just hasn't been going out. It's just been sitting there, which is really messed up. So that's bad. It looks like a lot of evictions are going to happen due to incompetence of a lot of state and local governments. Also, grocery prices are about to spike 10% for the rest of 2021, which is a prediction that they're saying is going to happen in grocery stores if things could not get any worse. When it comes to a fourth stimulus check, the $2,000 per month to every American at the change.org petition is currently at 2,939,000 signatures so far. And with everything piling up, it looks like the need for a fourth stimulus check is growing and growing, yet no politicians are trying to add it to the big reconciliation bill, and no mention of it happening anytime soon. Looks like Florida is having $5,000 checks. So Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida says plan to offer $5,000 bonuses to out-of-state police relocating to Florida is not related to vaccine mandates. So basically what's going on here is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said Monday his plan to offer $5,000 bonuses to law enforcement officers who relocate to Florida for jobs has nothing to do with COVID-19 vaccine mandates roiling big city police departments, saying it will be available to anyone who comes. If people are saying it's a vaccine issue, it's not. It has nothing to do with that. He then says he did not think police officers should be fired for shots. So basically, Ron DeSantis to a lot of different cities. It says here New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, Minneapolis. He's trying to get all those cops coming to Florida to start working in the Florida Police Department and giving a $5,000 bonus for that. When it comes to the big package, Manchin sees deal on Biden agenda this week and resists Medicare expansion, resisting many other things as well. But it looks like Joe Manchin is finally coming around, or at least the Democrats are finally meeting where Joe Manchin wants them to meet up. So here are the latest updates right here. So Steny Hoyer, who is the House Majority Leader, he said this: the president's working very hard on this, and the speaker has been working very hard on it, and so there's a lot of work that's been done. I think it could come together relatively quickly in the next few hours. He said that yesterday, October 26th. Chuck Schumer said, we remain confident that a deal is within reach. And with Joe Manchin, IRS bank reporting scheme is screwed up and cannot happen. So when it comes to that IRS probe, that That's where the IRS will have access to anybody's bank account. Originally it was $600, now it's up to $10,000 or more. So anybody who has that in their bank account, the IRS could basically spy or probe or access, however you want to word it. But basically the IRS will have information that they did not have before. So controversial Democratic IRS bank reporting proposal is likely dead, Manchin says. So since Joe Manchin has a lot of power, Joe Manchin could say, hey, we're not going to have this IRS proposal in there as well. Also, when it comes to Joe Manchin, looks like there's some shadiness regarding his history and the coal companies. Here's a video clip talking more about that.
Climate activists have been on a hunger strike outside of the White House for almost a week now, calling on President Biden to not abandon his climate agenda. They're willing to starve themselves for climate action, as some politicians appear to be more concerned about a certain special interest rather than saving the planet. Inside the Capitol, Congress may finally be close to a deal, with President Biden saying his meeting with Senator Manchin over the weekend was positive, and Speaker Pelosi saying that 90% of the bill had been agreed upon and written. There likely will be some climate change funding in the final bill, but it will be significantly reduced from what was originally proposed, with the clean electricity program likely out of it altogether, making it much more difficult for Biden to achieve his climate goals. Manchin has made his position on climate action pretty clear. One could argue that he's simply trying to represent his constituents who overwhelmingly voted for Trump. But he also appears to be acting in his own self-interest. We've mentioned many times on this show that Manchin is still making millions off his family's coal company. But a new report in The Intercept details the extent to which Manchin seems to have used his roles in government to prop up big coal profits, including profits that are very close to home. As an example, in 2006, when Manchin was the governor of West Virginia, his chief of staff met with lobbyists advocating for them to petition for a rate increase for West Virginians' electricity that kept Manchin's company's biggest coal customer afloat. Joining me now is the author of that article, Daniel Boguslaw, investigative journalist writing for The Intercept. And Daniel, thank you so much for being here. I read your report, and I think I was going, oh, throughout the whole thing, because I had read these previous pieces about coal prices in the state of West Virginia being hiked up so that ratepayers in this second poor state in the country could basically subsidize this dying industry, the coal industry. But you report that there's a Manchin connection. Please explain.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Joy. I think it's important to understand, first and foremost, Manchin's company, EnerSystems. This was his brokerage firm he created in '89. And as the first piece of this investigation showed, this company has been having a direct impact on the land, the air, the soil of West Virginia. We showed there was a massive EPA violation at one of the main suppliers to EnerSystem that was discharging into the Buffalo Creek, which actually runs through Manchin's hometown. We looked into the Grantown Power Plant, the main consumer of coal that those energy hikes affected. We showed that there was almost $200 million per year of associated health impacts in that region, whether that was increased asthma rates, whether that was heart attacks, or even deaths. We also looked at the impact on the land from the coal ash, the combustion byproduct of that EnerSystems coal going back into the land and leaching, carcinogens into the ground and water. We discovered dozens of safety violations at these sites, and in addition to 3 deaths. So this industry that's being sustained through these rate hikes, which my reporting showed in at least one instance for the plant that was consuming Manchin coal, and that he instructed his chief of staff to meet with the lobbyists for, that industry is having a direct impact and is being, was sustained thanks to Manchin's efforts.
And there were even, part of your story was this idea that coal was being sort of almost sneaked out of some of these coal plants and sold kind of off the books in a certain way that prompted an investigation. What's the status of that investigation? And can you explain that a bit?
Sure. So part of the question I wanted to answer was, how did we get here? It was Joe Biden who was elected with a massive mandate, not Joe Manchin, although sometimes it doesn't feel that way. So I began looking into the critical moments from Manchin's rise and discovered that there were multiple federal investigations. Now, the one you're referencing began in 1992 around the Peabody No. 2 federal mine. And basically, this was an investigation into coal shipments that were disappearing from the mine logs. At the time, all the reporting around this, it didn't mention anything about Enersystems, no mention of that. A number of people working at this mine were charged. Through an affidavit that I obtained that was sealed, seeking search warrants, discovered that Enersystems was actually named as one of the targets for this warrant. Enersystems trucks were transporting this stolen coal, but at the time, none of these documents were public. There was nothing in any of the media reports, despite several people being charged. When I reached out to some of those people, the mine supervisor, the security guard, all of the collaborators, only one person responded. That was a man who was working in the mine as an operator. And when I asked him how it was that he was charged, but no one from Enersystems was, he told me that was because they had connections and I didn't.
So what are your thoughts on Joe Manchin and his ties to the coal companies and the shadiness around it? Let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments below. Also, just a reminder, the infrastructure bill, not the big reconciliation bill, Build Back Better bill, but the infrastructure bill includes $1 billion for a commission run by Manchin's wife. So a lot of weirdness surrounding Joe Manchin and this entire bill, what he's fighting for, what he's trying to drop, and how much power he has in general. Very interesting. Let me know your thoughts on all that down in the comments below. So Democrats trim Biden's social spending plan as they rush to strike a deal this week. Is it going to happen this week? Here's the latest from other members of Congress.
Senate seat from Delaware that Biden once held. So, Senator, I know you had a chance today, you had a conversation with Senator Manchin. You know, he's still publicly saying he's at $1.5 trillion. Is that what you take away from your conversation?
What I heard from Senator Manchin was that he and President Biden had a very positive, a very purposeful conversation over the weekend, as I think we all know. And I reminded him of the urgency of this week and the timing. President Biden goes to the G20 and to the Glasgow Global Climate Conference, and it will make a significant difference if we can get to an arrangement here where the infrastructure bill moves forward on the House and where there's a framework for the Build Back Better bill. Both of them would make historic investments in programs like pre-K and childcare and in combating climate.
So, you know, I know, though, you were also in a meeting last week between Manchin and Sanders, and when you were talking to Axios about that, you know, you talked about the vigorous discussion where Manchin's basically like, I'm fine with zero, with a goose egg, and Bernie says $6 trillion. So do you really believe that, you know, everyone's just going to come down to where Manchin is? He doesn't move at all. Everybody else moves, and that's going to be the way this goes?
Aaron, I'm still optimistic that because there is consensus in our caucus about the need for middle-class families to get more support, to get more help so they can get back to work, whether that's in paid family leave or in support for the costs of daycare or in support for pre-K, that is something we can come together around. I do think the top line is going to be closer to $2 trillion than to the $3.5 trillion that we crafted a bill imagining back in August. But frankly, even at $2 trillion, this would be an historic investment in these critical social needs that have gone unmet for too long.
And that is all the stimulus news I have for you today. To hopefully brighten your day a bit, here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Everyone, sorry. This is the tip of the day. I'm going to tell you one thing what you can feel. If you really want something, then be a survivor, some juice. Just kidding. Be a survivor and do whatever you want, because that when someone's here for you, you can always use some help.
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of your support. If you want to check out any of my other videos, you could click up here or down here, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.